speak a lot about how technology is changing retail and consumption. But over the last few weeks, we've been really talking about how digital experiences in the e-commerce space have really evolved and changed. But in store, those digital experiences are still coming together, right? And there's a large gap in the market. And we thought it's a good idea to kind of bring the best brains in the region to talk about it. I think we have, and one of the good things about this panel that we're most excited about is we have all three dimensions of the business here. So we have a brand view coming from Vishal, we have a platform view coming from Ronak, and we have a systems implementation view coming from Steve. So when we get view of that all three dimensions, then it's easier for us to understand the journey so far, what are the challenges today, and what's the sneak peek into the future. I think we'll go through a quick round of introductions. Being the moderator, I get the privilege of introducing myself first. So Dharam, I'm part of a large group. I head e-commerce and unified commerce for the group. A lot of you use our brands like Homes Arrest, Dasho, Mom Store, Carters. And that's really about me. Over to the panel, over to you, Vishal.
Good evening, everyone. Very brief introduction about me. I'm in Dubai for the last 16 months, doing this CIO role here in Dubai with GMG Group. I've been doing this role for almost 10 years now, and I've been very lucky that prior to this, for previous 14 years, I was on the other side of table. I worked with Wipro, Accenture, and Siemens. I've seen that side of the world, how it evolved, which gives me enough insight into how his side of the world works and how the supplier side of the world works. A lot has changed, and a lot is changing, and that puts me under tremendous pressure in my job, how to maximize the return on the money that board gives me. Okay, so that's how I think, and we'll share more.
Steve.
Does it have to go green?
Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Steve. Been in Dubai all my life. Was a customer for 20 odd years before I came to the other side of the table. Isn't as much fun as I thought it would be. But yeah, that's what we do. We are a consulting and services organization. So we are a retail company, so we do everything from ERP to POS systems to CRM, CDP, loyalty, decision intelligence, XYZ. So that's who we are.
Hi everyone. My name is Ronak. I lead the global business for Find. Find is India's largest unified commerce platform. Over the past year and a half, we've been making inroads in the region, trying to get some work here. We do have a bunch of clients that we work with in the region. Happy to be part of this event.
Amazing. So I think to just quickly set context, retail is a very complex value chain, right? And everything that goes at the back end, right, from seasons to input from merchandising, from sales, visual merchandising, all of it is a lot of hard work over 18 to 24 months when your product comes into the store. And then there's a single moment of truth, which is the point of sale, where the customer actually takes ownership of the product, right? And that is an area which has always remained kind of untapped. In modern retail, a lot of the POS systems have actually been about customer service and maybe some cross-sell, upsell. But given the advent of SaaS-PaaS platforms, it is now changing. It's now changing towards customer experience. And I think that's the journey we want to talk about in detail today and see how store POS systems are actually going to become game changers going forward. And Vishal, you've seen, like you said, you've been in the thick of it all across various organizations on both sides. It will be great to hear from you what's been the journey so far, and maybe second part of the question is some context from GMG's perspective of what your challenges have been so far, and how it's kind of coming over them.
Yeah, so one is I want to answer in two parts. One is how I see retail technology and per se. Second is what we are trying to do. Okay. according to me, technology should not be on your face. Should not be very visible to you when you are in retail space per se. It should be weaved into the customer journey. There are multiple methods, ways how you weave that, and some brands do it very beautifully. One of them is Uniqlo, because whenever you talk about RFID as a topic, how beautifully they have integrated RFID in their customer checkout journey is that particular use case is a global benchmark. Okay, so like that, it should not be like so the readers are nobody sees those readers. Okay, so there are many such elements that goes behind making the customer journey seamless. That's one very high level. Then how I see, because there's always a conversation around point of sale, and that's how many retailers see that if it's tech, it's point of sale. Actually, it is not. Okay, it's the point of experience.
Right.
Okay, and in my personal view is, if I'm in a section, menswear section, and looking for a jacket, and the section officer is not able to show me a linen jacket that I'm looking for, the faded blue which can go with my this camel color, or which is core for many brands and jeans and so on and so forth. There is a customer level offline bounce rate that happens. Okay, and I call it like there is a latency out. Latency is a new outage.
Right.
Because in the e-commerce world, you can't have your website going down.
Right.
But in retail space, nobody talks about the latency as a concept.
Right.
Okay, so my view is that so that's where a lot of training comes into the play. The people should be there to help you out, and on many topics. So there are brands that I have worked with earlier in my previous work, like Adidas and all that, and M&S, where there's a lot of thought that is globally that these brands are putting in the brands I represent here and work here, they are putting in terms of the customer journey and how you help customer to find what they're looking for. Many a times customer doesn't know what they're looking for.
Right.
But then you go through the series of questions and discovery, and that's why you have these days stylists as well. Okay, you make an appointment with stylists and they take you through the journey and all that. So there is a lot of element of tech in that journey. So what is happening in point of sale per se in that journey, if you go to that specific question, in my view, it's a dated concept, mobile POS, but it is very relevant. If you go around, how many retailers are actually doing that, and how many are doing even the self-checkout, and how do they do it? So having a technology is one part, because these things are there for very long time. Even if you search on my name, Vishal, Kapil, MPOS, if you just write, you will find an Economic Times article of 2016. Okay, so 2016 is when I first launched mobile POS for a Reebok store in India. Okay, so that got reported by Economic Times. So people said, oh, wow, new thing and all that. But even if you look at here in today's context, it is so relevant. And when you are doing return to store of an e-commerce order, how are you making good use of all this tech to enable all that journey? And if you ask brands, are you really spending effort and time in fixing these topics? Answer would be no, it's not our priority, and you have so many people to talk to and arrive at a one consensus, because there are so many point of views. Okay, I am also highlighting the problem statement, because whom do you go to as tech? Because it's not about tech. The point I'm trying to make, it's been implemented by so many retailers so many years back. So tech is not new. Okay?
Correct, absolutely.
So these are the things which in my view are very important. Very, people don't talk about it, and hence, despite you having tech, despite you having money, customer is still suffering. I don't know how many of you understand Hindi, but there is a saying we have, whose customer, jo kast kha ke mar gaya. Okay, so even if you are talking about returns journey, it's so broken. Okay, mode of payment, you want to get your money back on the same mode of payment, how difficult it is. So there is a lot of tech elements, and in my view, tech is available, but the business process owners, they need to come together and they need to say, I want to do this, and let's make it seamless. I think that's where the answer is, which solves the problem for retailers, implementation partners, and the platform service providers. Okay, sorry for the long answer, but
I think very important. You brought it out really beautifully, and I actually see a thought bubble coming in Steve's head, and he was actually saying the same things that you were saying. So, but maybe Steve, you've been part of this region for a very long time, and there's hardly any retail group you've not worked with. In your experience of 20 years, you've solved so many use cases, but I'm sure there's some common themes across groups on implementation and what are the challenges. Could you enlighten us about some of those?
As Vishal said, right, so we have tech. Most organizations, at least people in this room, we all have it on the ground. Right? It all comes down to how it gets sold, how change management happens, how it's incorporated within the process as such. I think that's where you fail, right? So for example, with the tech team and the board who really wants technology on the ground, you still have business owners who still feel that his refund should not happen in my store, his credit note should not be redeemed in my store, it's my business, it's my P&L.
All legal secrets.
Right. So, that's still a struggle, right? So, I still remember a good friend who actually refused to come up on stage. 13 years back, we did bikers and click and collect on a system, and we integrated in Aramix way back 15 years back, and it works, right? All it took was for business to understand that we wanted to do this. An Aramix courier guy showed up into the physical store of apparel every day twice to see whether that shelf had boxes, right? And it worked. We had biker service. So it was never the gap of tech being there or not being there. It's just the fact that we fill in a blank, but it does not get stretched across for all the stakeholders to buy into that. Because there's somebody in the warehouse who actually contributes to it, somebody in the physical store who does not understand, saying that why do I be part of click and collect, because it takes away my incentive. So a lot of conversation that needs to be stitched together for all these technologies to work together, right? So Vishal is right in saying, the tech stack's always been there. People have been using it, but effectively, how many? If I sit here and talk about retailers in the region, I don't still see more than 10-20% of them actually using it effectively. And I think that's what the truth is, right? And I think we also have a large problem, right? I say this because I've been a customer for 20 years, and I think it took a lot for me to change when I came to this side. Implementing a system is like, and don't take me wrong, it's like getting married to somebody you love, right? So you fall in love with somebody, you get married, and then you want to change the person, right? All to realize in a year's time that person is no longer the person you fell in love with at the first place, right? So you find a product, you select it, you do all the due diligence, then you sign that contract, and all of a sudden everybody in the business feels that we have to now change the product to fit us. Customize it, right? And that brings in an evolution saying that a project that possibly your objective was to get that solution out there. Let's talk about OMS. We wanted an order management system. Get it out there, test it. If it doesn't work, get it out of the way in 3 months' time. That's what we all want, right? You made a bad decision, but you don't want to drag the decision to a 12-month decision and go back to the board and tell them, oh, sorry, I made a 12-month-old mistake, wrong mistake. But we spend so much time to actually get to actually testing the solution, because we try to get everything so right and get everything, all the knots tied in, to saying that, okay, fine, you want data, I'll give you data on a CSV file. Let's test the system first. We will tighten the rest of the elements very soon, right? And it's a common problem, and it stretches, and you get tired, people move, and by the time the project sees the other side of it, the people who started the project are no longer in the project. So I think it's a common problem, and I think that's why we struggle in this region. And it has nothing to do with money, it has nothing to do with not having the right partners, not having the right products on the ground. It all does that people still box sell in the region. You sell a solution, but you don't stand by it. And that's why I always say, right, you need more boutique partners in the region as compared to large partners, right? Because the dollar sign looks very good, but then you lose them somewhere or another.
Very well put, Steve. And I think most of your answers brought a shine in Ronak's eyes. I think the platform that he represents has answers to a lot of these. So, Ronak, help us understand. You've done this a lot in India. You're probably the largest partner platform in India today. Will be good to get your insights on how the platform can actually solve some of these problems, and maybe a few use cases that you have actually, with some examples that you can demonstrate that you have.
Sure. I think first of all, I would like to say I like the term that Vishal just coined, right? Store is a point of experience. If you, platform aside, if you look at experience online today, it has significantly moved past what the experience is available in the store. We were sitting with Google. I was in Singapore for NRF, and I was talking to somebody at Google. They told me 60 to 65% of purchase intent today start online, right? So what's really happening is that the consumer, while a large share of transactions are happening offline, the intention to purchase happens online, right? And when they look it up online, they want to experience it. They want to go at the store. Now, the moment you go to the store, imagine being at a store where the store associate is not as informed, right? He is not able to address your queries. With Gen Z, Instagram, TikTok, all of these platforms are driving a lot of consumption, right? We have customers going into the store and showing images of products that they would like to buy to a store associate, right? But what's really happening today is that the store associate is not really empowered to provide that experience that you get online today, right? So you go online, you can visually search in a search box, right? You can write something and find something that is available on your site, but you don't have the same experience available inside the store. So I think a large part of these problems today can be stitched together with a platform or a technology. But to really address, I think, the experience point, we need to start thinking about how do we start empowering store associates better, right? Along with the trainings, obviously, but they need to have the right set of tools. They need to have the right set of incentives in place to ensure that they are providing the best possible customer service. To give you an example, a lot of implementations that we do, the store associate has the ability to capture an image on customer's phone, and then we can possibly find what is visually similar available in that store, right? And then they can then service this better, right? Because we all know that the churn at the store is significantly high. The staff keeps sort of changing. It's really difficult to get them to train and get to the service levels that we expect them to. So this is one such use case. You walk into a lot of stores today, you don't find a product, right? It's available in some other store. But does the store associate have the right motive, right incentive, and the right set of tools to see where these products are available, so as to ensure that the customer does not walk out unhappy?
Right. I think very well put, Ronak. And since both of you gentlemen bashed the business side a lot, let me put on my business hat and ask you this question of when you are actually looking at, from a tech perspective, when you're looking at building out use cases, then what's the KPIs that business should look at from an implementation perspective? Because today one of the challenges is business wants to measure everything in very Excel formatted KPIs that you want to report easily to board. Now, how do you kind of convince business that these are the right KPIs to work with? And firstly, what are those KPIs? And how do you work with business to kind of define them?
Good question. I realized one thing. You can only share these things if somebody is willing to listen.
I'm listening, sir.
But if people want to just, because why I'm saying this, because there is one stark difference I see what happens in India and what happens in UAE. Because I'm a buyer here of tech and I was a buyer there as well. There, if I say, if Sterling is a platform for OMS and Fluent is not, so as a CIO, people will say, okay, fine, you are the CIO, you must have done your diligence, and then the governance team, whether that governance team has a CFO or an MD or XYZ, they will listen to that rationale. Why do you say X thing is better or Y thing is not better? Okay. And then you say, okay, fine, you want to grow a business. I'm just giving an example because I was the first Fluent customer, OMS customer in India, and I was their second customer globally who moved out of Fluent. One was the Changi Airport, Singapore, and second was my previous company. And I moved to another platform. A very simple reason that you want to have your e-com business from X to very high level.
Correct.
And because your question is about KPI and how do you sell the KPI. Okay.
Right.
So you want to scale this business and you are looking at buy online and return to any store. Okay. Buy anywhere and return anywhere as a use case. And you want to have pick in store, and you also want to have ship from store.
At the line item level.
Okay, because at line item level. And then you have some discounted product, and there are multiple nuances and shades within that. And there are some discounted, and this discount has ended. Now at the time of return, you have gone into the store, and now will you get the full price when you walk into the store and do the refund, or what is the thing that you will do? There are many things to it. So when you look at all these use cases and you say, okay, fine, this product gives you XYZ, but for that the CIO or whosoever is the leader need to be well aware and into the depth itself. If the person is not into the depth, they will look at the business guys. You decide. I will implement. So point is, it's a hard work to build that KPI and take people down that path. So then people actually are able to relate to whether it is your bias or you have done your own study. Okay, because in my experience, this is how you are able to take people down that path. Because when I bought Snowflake in 2020, when the shutdown was there, I was the first customer for Snowflake in India as a retailer, and nobody knew it. I didn't know how to find talent and all of that, and HR team was looking at, okay, how are you going to support it? Because you will put pressure on me to hire tech people, and then you will say, oh, I can't deliver the data lake because you have chosen that platform. So the KPI is not just limited to the business KPI.
Right.
The KPI as a leader, I need to define from hiring, vendor availability, implementation, and what benefit it will give you from an overall strategy perspective. It needs to ultimately join the strategic objective.
Right.
Because what you are doing as a function is, you are the operating model function.
Yeah.
Okay. You are not defining the strategy.
Correct.
But you need to validate whether your strategy will work in the operating model or not. And this is something which I see when I talk to people here in UAE, the stark difference that I notice here is there are so many salespeople. So many sales. I am quite overwhelmed in this market, and they go and sell to business. Yeah. And I have Mohit here, sitting here, so he knows what I am saying, and Sunil. I had 3 different clouds in my company, which I have over a period of time transitioned to AWS. I had to shut down. So, who has come, who is sold what to whom, it's very difficult. So, it takes a lot of time and energy to do all these things. So, business KPI is important at a very high level, but as a leader, we need to be very clear about our domain, and then only you can talk commercial and all these kind of things, and that's how you make your operating model better.
Right. It makes absolute sense. Steve, I think you also at the receiving end of this, right? And I live that with you every day. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Steve is on speed dial with most people in this room, and there are these conversations that happen at all orders of this has happened, that has happened. Steve, how do you deal with a situation where, from a systems implementation perspective, you have X saying you need to be more inclusive, and your business saying these are my KPIs you need to deliver tonight?
I don't think the business comes down saying these are my KPIs. In most cases, I think as Vishal said, we there are a lot of partners in town, and everyone's trying to sell the ROI idea to somebody or another, right? And somebody manages to do a POC, and I don't know how that works. So I'm thinking it comes down to saying that when you're doing something, regardless if it has anything to do with tech or non-tech, if I was to wear the consulting hat that I love in my job, you have to have an objective, right? And try to keep that simple and keep it minimal, achieve that, and then move on to the next, right? Now that could be as simple as, click and collect, or return and store, or content. Ronak spoke about empowering employees, right? So it's a large problem. I think Vishal would know this better. Today the problem is my son very well walks into a Nike store and he's very clear on what shoes he wants to buy.
Yeah.
Right? Unlike those old sales people who would say, oh, this is the shoe I want, I can sell you any white shoe that's got a blue stripe on it. It doesn't work because they're very clear on what they want. He can be 13 years old, but he clearly knows what is. Now the challenge is the salesperson standing there, right? So for this, the whole objective to work, everyone requires to contribute to it, right? That would mean to say leadership. I have clients where the leadership comes down and saying we've got to implement this. The people who least cry gets bonuses. That would mean to say you're forced to accept and adapt, correct? And that's always a challenge. I generally say that if I'm rolling out a new technology, pick up 3 stores who've got the latest employees, right? I'm thinking, who does not have somebody who's been there for 10 years, right? Get it working there and then say, okay, fine, it worked in your store. Now the 10-year-old can't complain saying that I've been doing this the same way for the last 10 years, right? I think understand, I think sitting within is really important for you to understand your own business, your own people and your own problems. It'd be wrong for you to expect a partner or a product vendor to come in and actually know you better than you on day one, right? I can say that I know some of the customers in this room because I've possibly been working with you, I've been peers, friends for 20 plus years in this space, so I know what would work in, for example, Lars. So I could possibly tell you that. But that's where it really comes down to, right? Leadership really coming down saying, this is our objective, this is what you want to achieve. This is your part to play, this is our part to play.
Correct. And
you set that clearly and simplify it. Don't set 20 objectives and 10 KPIs. I don't think it's going to work, right? Because I was telling Ronak today, I think Tuesday seemed to be a decent day for all of us to be here. If Tuesday didn't work, we'll try Wednesday next time, right? But you have to, and you can't do that with 40 large objectives. You can make that transition quickly if you actually have small objectives and then you actually adapt to more and move quicker as compared to move slow and then end of the year say that we didn't achieve anything. Right? That's how I would look at it. So.
Right. And I think so. Being a product of the Indian tech ecosystem, I really have deep faith in platforms solving these issues. And that's why, Ronak, I think from your perspective, how do you see platforms coming into this space now with the challenges that both Vishal and Steve have brought in? And what do you think are going to be like quick wins that business and tech can together get? Because platforms are able to solve a lot of these issues, you're able to do things in smaller modules versus everything at, how could you go about helping some of the brands, in this?
Yeah, I think first of all, both of these gentlemen are stealing my answers, so I'm running out of answers too. But yeah, anyway, so I think as a platform and from a platform lens standpoint, right, we typically enter a conversation when either the problem has been identified or in some cases the problem doesn't seem to exist, right? A lot of these conversations are problem doesn't seem to exist because there's some workaround that we've already built in, right? So those are the kind of responses we typically run into. Our approach essentially is first to ensure that the business and the leadership understands that the problem exists, right? If the knowledge is absent, we need to, I think, first educate them that the problem exists. Once the problem has been identified, the biggest hurdle typically that we see in terms of setting KPIs is groupism within companies, right? Companies are divided into groups and departments, and all of them have their own KPIs.
We are exchanging looks.
We understand politics, man.
I think so. As a platform to ensure that the initiative is a success, I think it is the platform's ownership and responsibility to first align the leadership on what are the measurable objectives and outcomes. Right? So the first exercise we typically like to do is define what is it that we need to do. A lot of times you cannot really quantify what is the ROI, right? And we come from a startup world, so we believe in build first and then let it break and then fix it at a later point in time. So our approach would typically be, hey, why don't we try this out? Here are some examples and references from what we've seen elsewhere, and we would want to try and keep it as nimble for an organization, whether it is large or small, to ensure that it doesn't break the system that they already have, right? So a platform is truly a platform if it allows you to plug in modules or components within your existing workflows without really breaking it, but also allowing you the flexibility to scale it up and add other modules as and when you need, right? You don't necessarily need solutions to all your problems on day one, right? So why don't we pick one small problem? Why don't we address that problem? Because more than the platform, more than the implementation, the large challenge is typically the organization, right? And it takes a lot of work to align the organization, and once everyone is on the same boat, it becomes much easier to do any or implement any new initiative.
Right. I think we are almost out of time.
Man,
But please add, Steve, you want to...
am I allowed to talk on your behalf?
Yes, please,
Right, I think it's really important. I think possibly India works like that. I've never worked in India, so I don't know how India works. I think one of the things that the first time I met Harsh and Ronak, they came into the country still trying to solve the same problems many people have been trying to solve for years together. So I asked them, okay, how are you going to be different? We all have endless aisle, but it doesn't work. So they were very clear from that perspective. They're not trying to solve this problem purely with tech. They understand that the human problem has to be solved. And I think that's one of the reasons why I liked the whole engagement as such. They say, we have to be on the floor to figure out why a certain store's endless aisle is not optimized or working. Is it a people problem? Is it a tech problem? Is it placed at the wrong place? X, Y, Z. And I think that's very critical. Working close, you rather have 100 customers, but 100 good customers who possibly sticks with you for a longer time, right? I think that's really important. And I believe they come from that thought process at least. So.
Yeah, no, I think I kind of agree with what you're saying. It's a plus one for me. We have probably about a few minutes. Maybe we can take some questions from the audience. Any questions? Yes, please.
I have a question for Vishal. You were talking about it before about the whole journey being worth in the region, focuses on the region and the cause. What do you think it is that it makes it so different? Like, why is it in this region? And I know we've alluded to different things about different having different people, a lot of people on the shop floor, or like why do you think it's so worth it in this region?
We have so many people with so many different point of views. That's my answer to your question. And secondly, too many people watch so many webinars during lockdown. And they try to overcomplicate here in the customer journey. Customer is not looking for that. Okay. You don't have inventory certainty, but still somebody has started an initiative of ship from store.
Right.
When your inventory is not right, and you are not sure of your inventory yourself, why the hell somebody is doing that? Okay. This is not new problem. And even if we go back a few years back, pre-pandemic and 2016, I remember I visited one of the stores Adidas stores in Mall of Emirates in 2016. I was shocked to see 3 different iPads in one store. So one for endless ID, one for customer NPS, one and one for staff training, and that staff training iPad is kept there so that the staff doesn't end up breaking it or something. So I said, and that's an L&D department. 3 different people in the company invested in 3, and it's coming from different budget lines. Okay, and now the expectation is the retail ops team should use it to all the different objectives of different people. Okay, so this is not new. Okay, so it takes a lot of courage for somebody at a very senior level and say this is BS, remove this BS and solve the customer journey. And that somebody needs to be there in the organization to bring different functions together. Okay, it's very, very important. And I can give one example to you. When I moved into this country, I bought different things from different retailers because I need to set up my house, I need to buy electronics, I need to buy different things, so on and so forth. And I thought maybe there's a problem with one retailer. I bought a TV, but I had somebody delivering refrigerator to me. I said, how the heck? You have an article number, you create an indent in warehouse, how do you do a outbound delivery, and then how can this go wrong? Okay, why is it so? Because in many countries, if you have a customer problem, people go to Twitter and they really rip you apart. If you look at what happens in this country, just do a scan of social media, how much people are talking about any negative comments about any brand? Very less. Okay, because the tech is available that if somebody writes any crap about any brand, about the experience and all that, automatically your ticketing tool creates a ticket and then somebody attends to that. And that is linked to your customer NPS also, and then even it goes to in some companies MD also, call up customer. Here, maybe social media you can't talk so much. So the behavior of customer is also such that if there is something wrong, it goes unnoticed. You can't blame just on the business. There are many reasons for the broken journeys. Okay.
Yeah.
can take one last question if anybody has. Yes, please.
I just want to understand the loyalty and marketing, how these are the two different things. Like, so loyalty, when you say it's a loyalty program, is it different from marketing or it go hand in hand?
Can I quick?
Yeah, please.
I'll share one example. In many companies, loyalty department sits under marketing. In many companies. But then what has happened different in this market, I'll give you an example. If you look at Atislat's Smile platform, Smile was their internal loyalty as a proposition for Atislat customers. But then somebody came with an idea that how can we make loyalty as a platform? Okay. So I know someone who built it for Atislat. I used to work in my team long back in Accenture, and Accenture built this loyalty platform on microservices based architecture for Smile, because the concept of loyalty for that company became as a platform as a service. Okay, so it's an interoperable loyalty. For companies like that, loyalty is a business. Okay, hence, because it's a business proposition, hence the operating model is a reflection of that. But usually in my experience, I've always seen marketing guys owning loyalty as a topic, but then e-commerce guys say, okay, I also want to drive the loyalty thing, but then it's an overlap, and hence the evolution of omni-channel loyalty app has come into the play, and hence your offline and online buys have blurred over there, because back end for loyalty is same. So this is how it is happening, but then there is an important question: who owns customer? Okay, that's a bigger question. Who owns? Because e-com guys, they want all the data, and CRM guys, they want all the data. They want to track all data, and they want to bombard because they want to drive the growth. The more people, conversion rate, and hence more sale. Okay, it's a very simple equation. And marketing guys, if you ask, they'll say, no, I am brand. Okay, I am brand and I am this values, brand values and all that. E-com guys will say that, why are you bloody spending money on brand? Sell more and make more money, and use that money to distribute that money and pay more incentives and blah blah blah. And so how companies are trying to seriously solve this problem, and they are putting accountability to people. Okay, so one example, my favorite example was, we had ordered long time back in 2021, we had Harry Potter pajamas, the night suits for kids, and bought only I think some 400 units. And marketing said, no, it's a Harry Potter is a brand driving topic. I will put some hoardings and do digital marketing and loyalty program, and I will do a push and that and all. E-com guys said, man, there are only 400 units. What the heck? Why are we wasting? So, by all this, they spent, I think, some 14 lakh million rupees on the spend, and the total inventory they had were less than 5.5 lakhs. Okay, so because brand guys, they don't look at the inventory, never. But e-commerce guy, somebody like him, they always have this pressure. How do I liquidate my stock and this discount and da da da? They are commercial centric. So these things, this BS cannot go long forever. Somewhere everyone is looking for profitability and growth, and that is where I see this evolving.
Absolutely.
But I really need to ask this question.
Yes, please.
Now, continuing on that, Vishal, you said something very,
Sorry.
very important. That the e-com guys look
marketing guy is not interested.
Many a time
And that's
so.
where the role of, like I come from the strategy point of view, that's where the role of the CIO comes in. How to build an information for both the parties to understand how to drive that.
No, information is
The
always
platform is
there.
the answer.
No, see, information is always there.
But it's not visible.
No, it's always there. No, because see, I'll tell you. The point is, I had Adobe Analytics app given to my MD and even the board members. That please every day, don't call me and don't call my e-commerce head and ask them about what is the funnel and all that and all this journey and all that. Here is your app. You keep checking. Okay. They were very happy. They were able to see all the journeys. But Adobe Analytics doesn't show the inventory picture. They were able to see sale happened, discount, how much of full price, all these things. But there is no inventory picture to it because nobody wants to talk about it. So why to show? But data is always there. It is the strategy people who are thinking. You know.
You already gave me enough food now to go and catch.
So, thank you very much.
Can I?
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Can I address this one, right?
Please,
So,
please.
again, most problems are people problems, right? If we have to take a leaf out of high stage growth companies, we see more often than not that there is no marketing function, right? It's growth. So you have growth and you have loyalty, for lack of a better word. There's a very interesting framework called R framework in the digital space. It's called awareness, acquisition, retention, revenue, and reference. Right. So the first two A's are responsibility of growth. The following ones are also responsibility of growth. But if you have to really think about it, right, loyalty is meant to drive retention and lifetime value. Right. Loyalty is not meant to drive acquisition. So to address the earlier question, how do you look at marketing and loyalty? I think within our company we don't have a marketing function. We have a growth function which is responsible for acquisition and awareness. And then you have the growth function which is responsible for revenue and retention. Right. That way you can possibly address the conundrum of marketing doesn't look at commercial data, marketing doesn't look at other metrics. But if you have a growth team which is
Ronak, you had already hit the nail.
So I want to close.
Vishal very subtly put, you said first KPI is get all those business leaders onto one single path. That is what you said was so true.
Yeah.
Getting all the
Before we
business
close,
leaders
I
onto
want to
one
give you another phrase. He said loyalty. Looks at loyalty and retention. He looks at it, and what's that? You said acquisition. Somebody else. But if you ask a marketing guy or a loyalty guy, what is your key KPI and what do you think? So loyalty guy will say retention is the new acquisition. Okay, so with that I think we should.
Yeah, I think we are out of time. We have another panel discussion, but I think it's a great conversation and we can continue this probably. But I encourage all of you to do this probably over drinks or dinner. The panel is available for all of you to kind of interact with. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for a great conversation.